right, I would like to welcome everybody to the August 5th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. It looks like we got a long one tonight. Just kidding. First item of business is call to order and determination of a quorum, and we have that. The next item is approving the minutes of July 8th and July 15th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes or any changes to those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The first item of business is, a public hearing, street renaming to rename an approximately 700-foot long segment of East Overall Creek Road to Constantine Drive, City of Murfreesboro Planning Department applicant. Mr. Blomley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Our first public hearing tonight is for the renaming of a 700 linear foot segment of East Overall Creek Road. East Overall Creek Road is located to the north of New Salem Highway, just off of Old Salem Road. If you've been out there, you've seen that recently Alcorn Properties has been developing the Belmore subdivision out there. Section 1 is complete and there are houses being constructed. They're getting very close to beginning work on Section 2. And Section 2 is what is directly adjacent to East Overall Creek Road. Section 1 are these lots that front on Old Salem Road. So with the approval of the preliminary plat for Section 2, we thought it was a good time to visit the renaming of this segment of East Overall Creek Road, especially at this juncture before they get moving with their construction and record the final plat, because once the final plat is recorded, we'll have lots that front on this segment of East Overall Creek Road. And just to kind of give you a refresher from what we discussed at our day meeting, this segment actually, if you look at the map, it's what's colored in the beige color. If you kept on going straight on this segment of East Overall Creek Road away from Old Salem Road, the street actually turns into Constantine Drive. You have to take a 90-degree turn to the south, to the left, in order to stay on East Overall Creek Road, and that's at a three-way stop. So it kind of defies logic. It defies our standard street naming protocol. Here's a aerial photo, and I'll zoom in a little bit. Not an aerial photo, but a street view photo. Here's the three-way stop, and this is looking west on East Overall Creek Road. So if you continued as the illustration depicts, it would become Constantine Drive. If you turned left, that's what would be the continuation of East Overall Creek Road, at least what's named East Overall Creek Road. So we annexed this right-of-way about 2 years ago, and so it's within our jurisdiction. Planning Commission, per the city's subdivision regulations, has the authority over street names within the city limits. So Planning Commission, after holding a public hearing, can decide whether or not to rename a street. I do throw the caveat in there, and you may recall at the beginning of 2019, you adopted a policy at the urging of staff that street renamings would be when there is a compelling public interest, and that could be a public safety interest, or it could be in conjunction with a construction project where renaming the street makes sense. In this case, we have a street that defies our standard street naming protocol because it changes at a 90-degree intersection at a three-way stop. We think that the improvement in decreasing the potential for confusion at this intersection is in the public interest, and therefore we as staff feels that this meets the threshold to comply with the policy that Planning Commission adopted back in 2019. We do need to conduct a public hearing on this request, and this request comes to us from the planning staff. However, the developer of the Belmore subdivision has indicated to us that he is supportive of the request, and one of his representatives is here to speak during the public hearing tonight. And there would only be one home that would be affected by this its address would be affected even if this does not change, due to the fact that they are actually going to remodel the house. There's a house that is here that currently faces the segment of East Overall Creek Road, but the developers are actually going to remodel it, put the front on this side and face it towards this segment of East Overall Creek Road. So really its street number and its address will have to change regardless of if this segment of East Overall Creek Road changes names. So, but at any rate, I think the developer of Belmore sees the merit to this request, and so he's going to speak during the public hearing. I'll be happy to answer any questions. We did send notices to all adjacent property owners, and I have not heard any complaints about this request. I'll be happy to answer any questions before or after the public hearing.
Any questions for Mr. Blomley? If none, we will go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone here that'd like to speak for or against? Mr. Atwood.
Hello, my name is Kevin Atwood. I'm here on behalf of Alcorn Properties. Just here to say we own, as Matthew stated, all of the property that's fronting along this segment and the little house that he mentioned on the corner. I think it's the only one that would be impacted by this, and we are in agreement and support of the city's desire to change the name.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't think there's anyone else here besides city staff. All right, with that, I will close the public hearing. Any comments, questions, motions with respects to this application?
I'll say the best time to change something like this is when it affects almost no one. And in this case, it really doesn't affect anyone. So it's the perfect time to do it. And I'd give kudos to the city for being on the forefront of changing it before it does affect people with the future development. So I think the timing is good. Would move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Blomley, that passes.
Thank you. And just for anybody watching, I would say that we will work on a date that makes sense to change that street name. We'll work with Mr. Atwood and Mr. Alcorn on that. It's existed in its present form for a long time, and so we'll work on a date that works for everybody.
All right. We'll move on to the next application, which is a sign ordinance amendment to amend Murfreesboro City Code, Chapter 25.2 signs, several sections for the purposes of adding a definition of external customer transaction portal and allow certain limited electronic changeable signs at external locations such as ATMs, drive-up windows, and gasoline pumps. Number 2, decreasing the time a temporary sign can be claimed and increasing the fee of a temporary signs picked up by or that are picked up that are in the right-of-way. Number 3, prohibiting certain materials from use in signage. Number 4, reducing the maximum allowable size of temporary signs. And number 5, allowing murals on more than 2 sides of a building. City of Murfreesboro Building and Codes Department is the applicant.
Good evening. There are several sign ordinance amendments being presented for approval. A stakeholders meeting was held on June 2nd at 5 p.m. We sent emails, posted flyers inside City Hall, as well as used social media and the sign administration webpage to advertise the meeting. The proposed amendments were reviewed and discussed. Some changes were made based on stakeholder input. The first changes to discuss related to the external customer transaction portal, ECTP, and drive-through lanes. We're proposing to allow electronic message center signs at ECTP and drive-through lanes. We thought it would be a good idea to add the definition of external customer transaction portal. This will be added to the definitions in the sign ordinance. A location where an activity or an event that can be measured in terms of money and which affects the financial position or operations of the business entity. Examples include, but are not limited to, ATMs, machines, DVD dispensers, and fuel kiosk. These are just some photographs of examples for your review. The intent of this section is to provide an opportunity for the use of changeable sign video display or changeable sign electronic graphic display. Signs for external customer transaction portal will be allowed under the new sign ordinance proposal. The proposed ordinance will allow one changeable sign per ECTP. The sign or video screen shall be no greater than 3 square feet and no more than 6 feet above grade. The signs will be required to automatically adjust to ambient light conditions. This is just a picture of what we want to prevent by making sure that they're have that capability. This will also affect drive-through lanes. This section of the proposed ordinance will allow the use of what's commonly termed as a digital menu board in drive-through lanes. We'll allow one pre-order board at 9 square feet max, one order station 9 square feet max with 3 square feet changeable video display inside the screen. A menu board of 20 square feet max, and it can have a separate video screen order, or it could be a menu or reader board with 20 square feet max that can have a video display screen insert. The reason we did that is because the video display screen, the 3 square feet, will have continuous movement. We want to make sure that the whole 20 square feet is not permitted to move continuously. Signs must be placed in the beginning of each drive-through lane and the first pickup window. The sign must be equipped to automatically adjust to ambient light conditions and no greater than 6 feet in overall height. Any questions on that section?
I have one real quick. Are we aware of any businesses that would be in violation of this today, or would this cover everybody in compliance with what we're talking about?
Well, they would become legally non-conforming signs. There are some that, by the way ordinance is written now, that if they're not facing the right-of-way, we've not considered them signs, so they've not been under this sign ordinance regulations. Because the city's growing and more of these screens are facing right-of-ways, we wanted to make sure that we were able to manage that more efficiently.
Well, I guess, just to make sure I'm clear, so are we aware of anybody that would be violating this ordinance so that when we pass it, we're going to go cite someone specifically because they're in violation? Ask it that way.
Not that I'm aware of. There are some video display screens out there, but they would be in compliance with this when this passes.
Thank you.
What about the information boards that are sometimes below a business's sign where they'll have an information board? I know one of the gas stations has what appears to be LED or something that is a digital readout, which to me is a great thing. I mean, it keeps somebody from standing out there changing out signs on the roadway. But I'm not sure every time I look at it that it's not probably in violation.
This would only address drive-through lanes and the external customer transaction portals where a business transaction is taking place.
Mr. Smotherman, there are one or two of those that got put in that would be, we allowed to be basically non-conforming and left them. And I don't know very many of those. This has been a topic in the past that we have discussed whether we should allow those to change from the manual that you go out there with a stick and a letter and a magnet and in a hurricane and try to put one up. And then some of those are fairly high off the ground too. I mean, there's certainly arguments both for those. We have not moved. We've not moved to allow those to come in as automatically changeable, digitally changeable. One of the issues with it is that it's so hard to control. And while we put in a requirement that it automatically adjust for light conditions, and in some cases we've said that they can only change, once an hour or something of that nature, it's so hard to police that. And once it's there, it's controlled by a computer off, back in the office someplace, and someone can make it do all kinds of things. and you go by, you see it, and you tell them, and they say, oh, okay, gee, we'll fix that, and 5 minutes later, it's back there again. Now, that, I guess, supposes that we have many people in our community who wouldn't follow, who would not follow all our rules. Maybe it's so, maybe not, but there's arguments both ways, and, you know, we just haven't sought to address that point.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is I think the people that I have seen doing it have been very respectful of trying to stay within the rules of, they may be illegal, but they're not, they don't have bouncing balls on them or
Right.
waving flags or anything like that. They're simply a digital LED readout of what the price they're charging for gasoline is. And I've even
Right.
looked at them in the daytime and nighttime, and there does seem to be a significant change in the intensity of the light. So obviously it's got some type of monitor on it that's monitoring the outside light.
We've probably all seen them someplace around that are virtually blinding at night.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're trying to avoid that as well. But anyway, that's, again, I know of a couple and that came in and were allowed to stay because there was an apparent approval that was misguided, but nonetheless happened.
Okay,
And
okay.
it was concerned. I don't know which particular one you're talking about. We may talk afterwards if there and there may be others that have come in. It's,
Yeah, I don't want to get the guy in trouble that has the one that I know, because to me, it's not intrusive at all. And I just think it's technology being used to his advantage and improving the safety of the sign operation. So, I mean, but I do think it would be nice if we're going to allow him to do it, then there probably ought to be more consistency across the board, allowing everybody to do it within whatever parameters we need to set up.
The next section is violations and penalties, section 24.2-4. Signs placed in the right-of-way are, we propose to increase the return fee for signs 5.5 square feet and under to $15. That would be an increase of $10 per sign, and increasing the return fee of signs over 5.5 square feet to $75, which is an increase of $50 per sign. Currently, the city will hold confiscated signs for 10 days. Staff is proposing this be decreased to 5 business days. Additionally, staff proposes deleting section 25.2-25, violations and penalties from temporary signs, as it duplicates the 25.2-4. Any questions on that one? Next section is 25.2-24, prohibited signs and other regulations. We're proposing to add signs which are constructed from painted and unpainted tires, exposed wires, or wood pallets. This comes from a public safety and health concern when these signs are constructed. The next item is murals. The city would like to define, or the city has defined murals as a painting or graphic applied directly to a wall or permanent surface other than a window which contains no advertising materials. Staff needed to clarify what's considered the front wall of an elevation. We define this as the portion of the exterior wall or elevation that is substantially parallel to the public street or right-of-way. The reason this came to our attention is these corner lots that we have, oftentimes there's a side of the elevation that would logically be considered side, but our street frontage, because that's the address to which the business is addressed to. Murals are allowed on the side and rear elevations, so we felt it was important to make it clear to the public which was their front. And to simplify that, we did their building street address. And then section 25.2-25, temporary signs. The temporary sign definition is any sign which is by reason of construction or purpose to be used for a limited period of time. Staff is proposing to, currently you can have 32, this is the other temporary sign in our sign ordinance. You can have 32 square feet and 12 feet maximum height. And the other limitation that would change would be the 32 square feet. So this is currently what we have, and we're proposing to change to 16 square feet, a max height of feet. And other limitations would be multiple signs shall not appear to exceed one sign that exceeds 16 square feet. This portion of the ordinance wouldn't take effect for 6 months from the passage of the amendment.
I had a question about this too, mainly just to clarify. I think last time we talked about campaign signs being a part of this, but in talking to Mr. Holtz, campaign signs would not apply to this, if that's
Right, this
correct.
campaign signs would not be affected by this during the TCA requirement timeframe.
Thank you.
So I have two questions. One is the temporary signs, and I don't think we're addressing it here, but is it limited to the number of tenants in a building? So we'll call it a strip center, and you've got 6 different units, 6 different occupants. Are all those occupants allowed to have a temporary sign in say, the right-of-way?
No, currently, so it's by parcel. There's 3, you can have, and this is with any temporary sign in the ordinance, you can have 3 temporary signs per parcel.
Okay,
So typically the landlord will help address that with the
I
tenants.
see.
Um,
okay.
So it's 3.
And then the next question is, you're addressing this whole tire bit, using the tires as the signs. And back to Mr. Martin's question earlier, my guess is you're not going to be able to enforce the ones that are already out there to make them move it. It would only be anybody that tries to do it in the future. Is that a correct statement?
Temporary signs are not grandfathered in, basically.
Okay,
So temporary signs are temporary, so
Okay.
they're not
I'm with
a
you.
permanent sign that's been permitted for that
Okay.
particular use.
So the city would be in a position to, and I'm just trying to understand, the city would be in a position based upon them being temporary signs and they're now not allowed to be temporary signs, then the city could enforce for those tire signs to be eliminated. Is that a correct statement?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
We believe pardon me, we believe that will be the case, that we
Okay.
can enforce that.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions before we go into a public hearing?
Do we notify local businesses of this in any way? Just there's a lot of, businesses out there that would not know to run some signs and then go to pick them up and then realize after the fact that, it adds expense to folks, and just curious about
For this particular amendment, we would definitely, I think in the past, we've made an effort to get to these businesses and let them know the time frame, either by letter or person to
talking
person.
about to the like sign manufacturing type companies, that when a customer goes to them and asks, I want this big sign, which they could have gotten previously, but then in the future, that the sign companies have some notifications so
Yeah.
they can say, I'm sorry, I'll make it for you, but you can't put it out.
Well, that was addressed at the stakeholder meeting as well, and then I'm also in contact with sign companies on a daily basis. Anytime there's a sign ordinance change, I send them a link to our municipal code, and then as well, we'll update the sign administration page.
So I think one of the changes is going to be the biggest issue is reducing the size of temporary signs. So that doesn't take effect for 6 months after council approval. So our plan is, if it gets approved, is to come up with a form letter. Anytime we see a sign that would be in violation, sign inspector, and simply give them that form letter, letting them know on this date, that sign will have to be changed to a smaller sign. So hopefully they won't go buy another sign, and be in violation. So we're trying to, we know this is going to be an inconvenience to some businesses. We're trying to make it as easy as possible.
And as they said, we did have a stakeholder meeting, and weren't all the sign companies notified of that?
Yes, all the sign companies were
All the
notified.
sign companies were. Generally, when we do something significant with the sign ordinance, we do let all the sign companies, local ones, know, and the word does get out. And specifically, we had some of the developers and builders notified of that, because some of their signs are ones that end up sometimes in trouble. And we had good turnout for that, and had a good discussion with the group that showed up, so it was a good meeting.
All All right, any other questions from the Planning Commission? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move into the public hearing for this application. Anyone here would like to speak at for the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And any other questions or comments or motions on from the Planning Commission?
If there are none, I'll make a motion, we approve the amendment as presented.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And I'm assuming we can make this all one motion, even though there's 5 parts to it, correct? Okay.
One motion will cover
All right.
this, yes.
All right, good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That ends the public hearing process. Are there any other staff reports or other business?
Ken, on a follow-up of what we just discussed, I think it would be appropriate for us to go ahead and look at the message boards that the businesses have. And so I would just like to make a request that we at least review and see if we could take care of those hopefully as well as you did this last one. I don't think I've ever seen a signage change that didn't have people in that come and spoke on it. So if we could do as good a job of communicating that as y'all did with this, I think you're on a roll.
I've got one question before we close. I had somebody answer or ask this question to me, and I don't know the answer. Matthew, can you give us an update of maybe the sewer density plan that I think a third-party engineering firm was put together for the city, and when you thought that when that would be done?
Are you talking about the update to the Murfreesboro 2035 plan?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, our team is continually working with Reagan Smith on that. Reagan Smith is our consultant. We're holding meetings on a regular basis with Reagan Smith. They're working on that. Don't have an exact time frame on that, but we'll get you an update at our day meeting later on this month. We'll put that under staff reports and other business to give you all an update on that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else have anything to bring before the Planning Commission? All right.
Just remind everybody to get out and vote tomorrow, August 6th, Election Day. Encourage everybody to get out and participate in the process. And I know we've had a great turnout so far, and hope it continues through tomorrow.
All right. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.